Good morning. I'm Dan DeRosa with 19 News Now, coming to you from our digital desk. We're going to be taking you live to the Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas. In court, we are expecting the 18-year-old who back in March is accused of shooting a Cleveland police detective. You might remember this picture. This was from body cam. We are interested in the 18-year-old in the orange coat on the left-hand side of the screen. He would later shoot that detective. That is Mark Barashuk. He was hit in the arm, obviously survived. Those are the dispatchers that helped him out. It looks like he might already be in court. Let's take you live.
Explain them so that when you talk to your lawyer or I sign a lawyer, you have an opportunity to have a discussion with them and understand what the process is. I'll also explain to you how I...
And in fact, this is the judge giving the room just want to make sure we're looking at the Cleveland Juvenile Detention Center. I thought this was an 18-year-old, not sure.
And then here in Ohio have certain rights, and I'm going to explain those to you. So you all have a right to know and understand these charges that are placed before you. And today you're looking at this indictment. You may have received it in the mail. You may have received it today. Have any of you in this courtroom not received?
So just a quick explanation from our assignment desk. He is appearing live via the Juvenile Detention Center. He was 17 years old at the time. This is back in March. He was 17 years of age at the time of the shooting. He is now 18. The grand jury heard the case, and he is now going to be indicted as an adult. He is facing numerous charges, including attempted aggravated murder, felony assault, failure to comply, having a weapon while under disability. That means he had a prior felony and he was in possession of a gun. Then receiving stolen property, obstructing official business, improper handling of a firearm in a motor vehicle, and the discharge of a firearm on or near a prohibited premise. Again, this goes back to March when he is accused of being in a stolen Hyundai there that you see, and they were being chased. There were 4 suspects in that car being chased by detectives. When they crashed, they bailed out, and then he eventually shot that detective.
They have the burden.
Again, we're just listening to instructions the judge is giving. This is a mass arraignment. There are many people in the room being arraigned today. It looks like Jerion Church will be first. While we wait for the judge's instructions, they take 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. Let's take a look at just how Jerion was arrested, and it was not easy. Take a look at our story from our Michelle Nix.
Suspect is in custody. He jumped out the 3rd floor window and was apprehended below it.
Just one station obtained this photo of 17-year-old Jerion Church after he jumped from a 3rd floor window on Cedar Avenue in Cleveland. U.S. Marshal Pete Elliott says his Violent Fugitive Task Force worked with Cleveland police who identified the suspect.
He had jumped out a 3-story window, jumped 3 stories, hit the ground, went unconscious for a few seconds, but he, again, tried to get away from us once again.
The U.S. Marshal says they've had eyes on the shooting suspect since he was first identified in this surveillance photo on March 14th. And he says it's like the teenager has tried to play a game of catch me if you can.
We've been tracking him for about a month, and he has been like a ping pong ball going between place to place.
Church, now arrested, is facing charges including attempted aggravated murder of a peace officer.
I know 7-8, I'm shot! I'm shot!
The shooting happened when Cleveland detectives approached 4 stolen car suspects who jumped out of the vehicle. Church, the only one who opened fire, according to police. Detective Mark Barashuk, pictured here with the 2 dispatchers who got help to him that day, was shot in the arm and leg and is recovering. Jeff Fulmer, president of the Cleveland Police Patrolmen's Association, says if you shoot at the police, they're coming at you with everything they've got.
If he shoots at a police officer and strikes a police officer, what is he doing to the neighborhoods and the citizens over there?
The wounded officer was notified immediately after Church was arrested and 3 guns recovered. For now, he won't be jumping from windows. He'll be sitting in jail.
We know he got arrested today. We feel very good.
That was our Michelle Nix reporting. That was the day that Jerrion Church was arrested. You now see him sitting there in juvenile detention center. The crime committed as a 17-year-old juvenile, but the grand jury charging him as an adult. That's why we are seeing him in this arraignment. Let's listen in. I believe the judge is probably still going through instructions.
We're going to have a chance to talk about your case, and then we'll move forward with the matter.
And again, the judge just giving, this is a mass arraignment taking place in the Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas. There are multiple people being arraigned this morning, but it looks like the now 18-year-old Jerrion Church is going to be first in all of this. Let's just listen in to the rest of the court's instructions, as the arraignment for Jerrion Church will last only a couple of minutes.
You're a lawyer, say we'll waive the 24-hour notice. So if you just received it this morning and you're looking at it for the first time and you'd like 24 hours to talk about it to your family or a lawyer or somebody else, you can exercise your right today and say, Judge, I haven't had it for more than 24 hours, so I don't want to go forward. And all that means is I will see you here tomorrow, right? So you'll be here at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. So if you want to have that, fine. That's a constitutional right. It's a right here in the state of Ohio. Otherwise, we'll move forward. Waive the 24-hour notice. Waive the reading of the indictment. So if you can read it and you see it says theft or grand theft or felonious assault, whatever the charges are, if you understand them, waive the reading of the indictment. And then you'll enter a plea. The only plea I'm accepting today is not guilty, right? Why do I say that? Some people sit here, I've been told, and they say, well, I want to enter a plea. You know, I took my grandmother's check. I was in dire need and I wrote a check, and it wasn't, I didn't have the authority to do so. And I want to accept my responsibility. Today I'm going to tell you, while that's something you could do at a later date and time in front of a judge, why I don't want to do it is because in Cuyahoga County we have a number of opportunities that, if you qualify, could allow you to get in a specialty court or a diversion court where your case, if you complete something successfully, might be expunged, might be dismissed. And I don't know that today. So why would we want to prejudice you by letting you plead guilty and miss out on something that you might be afforded? We have 5 mental health court judges, 4 drug court judges, veterans treatment court judge, diversion court that the prosecutor offers, a diversion court that's part of the Ohio Revised Code. So not guilty is the only plea I'm going to accept today. And then I'm going to do the 3 things I spoke of. My bond commissioner gives me a recommendation for a bond. I'm either going to agree with it or have some further discussions about it, and then I'll set your bond. When we're done setting your bond, I'll assign a judge to you, and that's done randomly. This computer picks your judge. I don't pick it. So I'll look down, I'll tell you who your judge is and when your court date is. If your lawyer's here for you, your lawyer's obviously someone you retained or maybe appointed at the first appearance, they will remain with you. Otherwise, if you are unable to afford a lawyer, I'm going to appoint one to represent you. And there's 2 ways that's done, just so you know. If you look at your indictment, the last number in your indictment, 1, 3, 5, and 7. If your number is 1, 3, 5, or 7, you have the option.
Dan DeRosa with Channel 19. Just a quick update here. You're listening to the instructions by the judge. This is a mass arraignment, multiple people being arraigned today. The judge gives a number of constitutional instructions on how to plea, who your attorney is, who your judge is going to be, and then they will get underway. If you are just tuning in, you're looking at Jerrion Church. He is accused back in March 14th, of being in a stolen Hyundai that was being pursued by Cleveland police detectives. Once they crashed that Hyundai, this is the picture that we have seen several times, Jerrion Church and the other 3 suspects took off on foot. They were confronted by this police detective, Mark Barashuk, and that's when allegedly Jerrion Church, and there is a body cam video that shows him very clearly turning and firing towards the officer. He had an extended magazine on the handgun he was using, and it hit the detective in the arm and in the leg. Obviously, he survived. But this is now, it has caught up with Jerion Church. He was on the run for several months before he was arrested. He now sits in the juvenile detention center. They only took him to the juvenile detention center because he was 17 at the time of the crime. He is now 18, and the grand jury has indicted Jerion Church on adult charges: attempted aggravated murder, attempted murder, felony assault, failure to comply. Having weapons under disability means he was a felon even at the age of 17 and should not have had a gun. Receiving stolen property, obstruction of official business, improper handling of a firearm in a motor vehicle, and then a discharge of a firearm near or on a prohibited premise. Again, looks like this is the first
Mr. Church, you heard
case.
what I had to say this morning. I have our public defender, Mr. Moore, present. He's going to speak on your behalf at this time. 683-229.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
Good morning, Your Honor. On behalf of Mr. Church, Sean Moore for the Public Defender 0075129, we would enter a not guilty plea, acknowledge receipt of the indictment, waive reading of it, and any defects in time or service. We would ask that private counsel be appointed to represent Mr. Church and that the court order a reasonable bond in this matter.
Thank you. Prosecutor Filiacho, anything on behalf of the state?
Yes, Judge, thank you. Your Honor, this case represents some of the brazen violence we're seeing out in the streets of Cleveland. On March 14th of this year, this young man was driving a stolen Kia in the area of East 30th Street. Police attempted to pull him over with lights and sirens. He crashed the car and ran. Another police officer, that individual's partner, picked up the pursuit and stopped and called out. He's got a gun with a 50-round mag. And he got out of his car and attempted to arrest this man, and this young man shot him point blank. Shot Detective Mark Barachek and ran off. The state requests at least a $500,000 bond for this young man. He presents a serious danger to the community and should not be released on bond. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, at this time, Mr. Church, I'm going to set a $500,000 cash surety bond. No contact with the victim. I am going to ask that a DNA sample be taken from you as well. At this time, I'm going to appoint Attorney Scott Ramsey to represent you, sir. Mr. Ramsey will be notified today, and he'll have an opportunity to meet with you as well. The judge on the case will be Judge Holly Gallagher. She'll be assigned your judge, and she sets hearings from her courtroom and her bailiff. So Mr. Ramsey's going to get notice, Mr. Church, and then he'll have an opportunity to meet with you. Any questions, sir?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll adjourn.
And there it is, a $500,000 bond set for Jerion Church. That is just the extent of the arraignment. That's how quick they are. You heard the state, the prosecutor's office, laying out the case that they have. Jerion Church bailing out of this stolen vehicle and then taking off on foot. He would be confronted just a couple of blocks later by Detective Mark Barachek, and he was shot point blank, as described by the state, shot in both the arm and the leg. And for that, he is going to face trial. But first, his bond had to be set $500,000. That is a pretty sizable bond. But again, this is a young man facing an attempted murder against a police officer charge. We will follow this case through the system and bring you any updates as they come. If we have any other breaking news, we're going to bring it to you here on our digital properties. Until then, I'm Dan DeRose with 19 News Now. Have a great afternoon.
19 News is everywhere. Download our CTV apps and follow us on social media @Cleveland 19 News.